There are truths that no one has the courage to tell, but every man needs to know them if he doesn't want to live like a fool in a relationship. Women, just like men, have strengths and virtues, but they also carry hidden vulnerabilities, blind spots that most prefer to disguise. These weaknesses don't appear in superficial conversations, in podcasts, reels, or TikToks. They are in the subtext, in the gestures, in the repeated patterns, generation after generation. These are mechanisms that, if you don't see them, you'll end up being exploited, and worse, you won't even realize where the blow came from. That's why today we're going to expose the root of the 10 hidden female weaknesses that govern choices, relationships, and even manipulations. Understanding this is essential so you don't get played by women. It will help you stop being used, to not waste energy and time on something that only benefits her. Each of these weaknesses can become a trap for the unprepared man. However, for those who understand the game, they can become a map, a manual for reading the female mind. 1. The dependency on validation. Most women live in search of approval, not fulfillment. She measures her worth by the reaction she provokes, by likes on social media, comments from friends, or praise from strangers. Here's a brutal detail. A man who understands this never gives cheap validation. After all, this weakness exists because the need for approval is insatiable, and every time you kneel to confirm her ego, that weakness is reinforced. The man of value knows this and uses scarcity as a weapon. Too much validation makes you invisible. Validation in the right and conscious measure makes you a priority. 2. The addiction to drama. Many women can't stand emotional stability. They confuse peace with boredom, which is why they create drama, provocations, and arguments. They poke at a man just to feel intensity. It's the chemistry of chaos, the fuel of adrenaline. The mistake of ordinary men is to believe that love needs to be calm. For her, absolute tranquility is synonymous with disinterest. And that's where you lose ground to the bad boy, to the guy who only brings emotion and risk. A man who understands this weakness doesn't fall into the trap of becoming a boring, nice guy. The secret is to balance stability with calculated doses of unpredictability. 3. The prioritization of security over passion. This is the point that many men realize too late. While she's young, desire speaks louder. The bad boy, the wrong guys, seem more attractive. But when life starts to take its toll, when the mirror shows the weight of the years, the game changes. She swaps emotion for security, intensity for stability. If you don't understand this shift, you'll delude yourself into thinking she's with you for love. Many times it's just for survival. At this point, the beta provider becomes the hidden, not the desired one. You need to know this so you don't fall for this illusion. Because when you're paying her bills, you're the fool. These are just the first 3 points. In the next ones, we will delve into even deeper aspects: manipulation through guilt, fear of loneliness, confusion between sex and connection, hypergamy, and others that govern every silent choice. If you think you've understood enough, get ready, because what comes next will show why so many men are exploited and discarded without even realizing it. After understanding how validation, emotion, and security shape female choices, we need to dive into other more obscure layers, those that go unnoticed even by the most experienced men. 4. Indirect competition. Women compete with each other differently than men. While we compete in the open, they play a hidden game. Fake compliments, veiled comparisons, small gestures that sabotage a rival without even looking like an attack. At first, it might seem like explicit malice, but many times it happens naturally. They do this to feel in control of the situation, emotionally destabilizing their rival. This is precisely why a man who stands firm, without being swayed by comparisons or indirect insults, gains a position of prominence. He simply doesn't play her game. 5. The confusion between sex and emotional connection. For many women, physical intimacy isn't just pleasure, it's a form of connection and a projection of the future. That's why many create expectations after just a few nights. But here's the trap. The naive man believes she's fully emotionally connected with him, when in reality, she's satisfying an emotional rather than a carnal desire. A woman can share her bed with you and, the next day, be talking to another man. A man of value understands that a presence in the bedroom doesn't mean a presence in his life. 6. Hypergamy. Perhaps the most famous and controversial of all. The female tendency to always seek a man on a higher rung, with more status, more money, more influence, everything counts. It's not just about material interest, but instinct. The problem is when a man is unaware of this basic rule and believes in the narrative of unconditional love. When you don't understand hypergamy, you become a disposable item, used when you serve a purpose and abandoned when you're no longer convenient. But when you recognize it, you don't humiliate yourself trying to prove your worth. You value yourself and make it clear that she is the one who needs to adapt to your standards, not the other way around. 7. Emotional neediness and the projection of needs. Many women carry internal voids that they try to fill with a partner. They don't want a man, they want a therapist, a savior, someone to heal wounds that aren't theirs. The unprepared man accepts this burden, believing he's being loving. But in reality, he ends up becoming an emotional punching bag. The truth is simple. Neediness isn't solved with a relationship, it's solved with individual maturity. Anyone who takes on this burden is signing a contract to be a therapy mule. When she heals, she'll go back to the guy who emotionally hurt her, and you'll be left looking like a fool. 8. Control through guilt. This is the most dangerous field because it's not explicit. She doesn't tell you to control yourself, she makes you control yourself on your own. She creates doubts, uses vague phrases, and installs a psychological system where you start holding yourself accountable all the time, even without direct demands. And when you least expect it, you're trapped in a system of emotional surveillance. The man who doesn't understand this starts taking on guilt that isn't his and carrying burdens that don't belong to him. Understand one thing: you don't negotiate dignity in exchange for peace. By now, you must have realized that these weaknesses aren't just innocent vulnerabilities, they are also weapons, often unconscious, but still weapons. And anyone who doesn't know how to identify them ends up. But there are still two of the heaviest ones left. And this is where the mask falls and you understand why so many men leave seemingly stable relationships destroyed. 9. The fear of loneliness. Few admit it, but the reality is simple. Many women prefer to stay in a bad relationship than be alone. Don't be fooled by catchphrases like, "I'm enough on my own," or, "I am self-sufficient." In practice, most panic at the idea of being invisible, without attention, and without company. This explains why many women prolong failed relationships or run to a plan B, even before breaking up with their current partner. For the man who doesn't see this weakness, it looks like emotional dependency or neediness. But the man who is attentive knows it's a warning sign. If she can't be alone for a while, she'll use someone as an emotional crutch, and you can bet that someone could be you, especially if you don't know the teachings of ANTIFRAGILE, which is here in the description link. 10. The strategic use of female competition. This is the dirtiest but also the most common move. Many women deliberately create a scenario of competition. They reply to messages from other men just so you notice, they maintain suspicious male friendships, and they display third-party interest as a trophy. They don't do this because they're actually interested, but because they know that making a man feel threatened or replaceable messes with his peace of mind. It's a game of inverted scarcity. She makes you believe she's the only valuable option, while you are easily discardable. She artificially reduces your value and increases hers. However, when you understand this weakness, you never react with desperation, jealousy, or surveillance. You do the opposite. You become the prize. You show that if she needs to create artificial competition to maintain interest, it's because she has already lost the true value she should be delivering. This is the most delicate point and where many men break, humiliate themselves, and become watered-down versions of themselves. And it's also where the difference between the average man and the man of value is born. The average man gets desperate, enters the game, fights for attention, loses his identity, and tries to prove he's better. The man of value simply walks away from the table. He understands that dignity is non-negotiable and that female weaknesses only become traps for those who don't know the territory they're walking on. If you have recognized any of these situations so far, congratulations, because that is the first step to never being a fool again. And the second step is to learn how to use this knowledge to protect yourself. Now that you know the 10 hidden female weaknesses: dependency on validation, addiction to drama, swapping passion for security, indirect competition, confusion between sex and connection, hypergamy, projected neediness, manipulation through guilt, fear of loneliness, and the dirty strategy of competition, you know they all have something in common. They are points that, when a man doesn't see them, turn him into an easy target. The big issue is that most men prefer to believe in romance stories, in soap opera lines, and in promises of unconditional fidelity. But the real world doesn't work that way. The social game is shaped by instincts, insecurities, and strategies that are not always conscious. And when you ignore this, you not only risk losing your vital energy but also handing over your dignity on a silver platter to someone who is worthless. A man of value isn't deluded. He doesn't let himself be fooled by strategic tears, doesn't sell himself for a little attention, and doesn't kneel before manipulation. He understands that respect is worth more than any feeling. And whoever sees himself as the prize never begs for a place. And this is where you need to make a decision. Will you continue living on autopilot, believing that being the nice guy is enough to earn respect? Or will you open your eyes to reality and understand the rules of the game? Because the difference between a free man and a trapped man lies precisely in knowledge. A man who understands female weaknesses is never a fool again. If you want to learn how to apply this knowledge in practice and protect yourself once and for all from manipulations, emotional games, and drama, the next step is in the link in the description. Download ANTIFRAGILE, learn everything quickly, and then thank me. Onward, warriors.